This is the Helpful Lockpicker here, and welcome back to my Lockpicking Homeschool series. The video I have for you today is going over how to take apart your clear acrylic padlock and be able to repin it with some security pins or just improve it in general. I find these locks as a really great visual aid for those starting out, and as we start moving forward towards security pins, I feel like this will be a great tool to help you be able to visualize and conceptualize what's going on inside your locks. Right now I have this lock pinned up to 6 pins with security pins, and I will show you how I did that in just a moment. Before I show you how to take this lock apart, I'd like to show you an example of me picking this lock open. One of the chronic problems that you find with the clear acrylic locks when they come from the manufacturer is they come with key pins that are much too long that sit at the shear line, and it makes it so that you do not need to pick all the pins to get the lock open. Often it will be a lock that you only need to pick 2 or 3 pins to get it open. So when you learn to take these locks apart, you can improve them and make them really great locks for people to learn on to really help conceptualize what's going on. This lock right now, I've upgraded it and added spools in 1 and 2, serrated in 3 and 4, and then spools in 5 and 6. This will be a really great tool for people to have to be able to help visualize the feedback they're getting and really conceptualize what's going on. As you start to progress to security pins, you got to really get familiar with the feedback that you're getting from your lock, and this will be a really great way for you to be able to see and feel what's going on at the same time. As you can tell, in 1 and 2 are both spools, 3 and 4 are serrated, and 5 and 6 are spools. I'm going to go over now how to take this lock apart so you can upgrade it and change it around however you would like. Now I'd like to focus on how to get this lock taken apart. You have about 3 options. One would be using the key, which I highly recommend. 2, picking or raking the lock open. Or 3, you could try to shim the shackle open. All will end up with the same result. What we need to do is be able to expose the shackle. I'm going to opt for using the key. When I use the key and open up the lock, you can see that there's really no way to take this lock apart when you first look at it. Normally you would have to put a screwdriver down the hole here and undo a screw. But on this lock, we can take off this plastic plate here that says Lock Mall. So you can just take any screwdriver and just pop the plate right off. This will allow us access to the Bible. I'm going to take that plate off, and then you'll see that we'll have access to the Bible and we'll have all these springs here. The first thing I'm going to do is get my pinning tray, and I will place the top piece here in the tray so I do not lose it, and get a pair of pinning tweezers. When you look at the lock, you can see right past key pin 6 is this pin in 7. This is what retains the plug so it will not fall out. So we're going to need to take all these springs out one at a time. The spring that retains the plug is a bit thicker, and I'll put that in spot number 7. So I'm going to now take out every single spring and put them in the appropriate slot. Essentially what we're doing at this point could be considered top gutting the lock, since we are taking everything out through the top. And be very careful that you do not drop any of the pins or springs going forward. These are very easy to lose and very easy to drop. So now I just have one little spring left here. Let me just insert the key a little bit just to get it to rise up a little bit. And now we have all the springs out. What I recommend at this point is I want to separate the key pins from the driver pins, so when I take everything apart, everything doesn't get mixed. So I'm going to turn the plug here, and I don't really need to make note of any of the pins because they're all pretty much the same. So I'm going to dump all of them out now. The only one pin that's a little bit different is the pin that retains the plug, but that is easily identifiable because it is one that is much larger than the rest of the driver pins. I'm going to place that to the side, and when you look at all these driver pins, they look exactly like key pins. So there's really nothing too special about these pins. One downside about this lock is how most of the key pins sit almost at the shear line, so you do not have to pick all the pins all at once. So now I'm going to carefully remove the plug. Be careful here because these locking pawls will be able to come out pretty easily if you're not careful. So when you look at the plug, you can see these key pins, many of them sit pretty flush, so that's why you don't need to usually pick every pin to get this lock open. I'm going to now just take out every pin and put them in the right spot, and then we'll have our lock taken apart. If you wish to take this lock apart one step further, we can even take out the locking pawls through the top here. And this is what secures the shackle here. These two pieces of metal with this spring, and these come right apart. And I will show you how to reassemble everything in just a moment here, and then we'll be able to do some upgrades. The next step's going to be to insert your key pins into your plug so you have everything inserted properly so you have a working key. I'm going to insert my key now, so as I go I can make sure that they are all in the correct spot. So I'm just going to be careful not to drop any of my key pins. So I'm going to just put them in each slot here. And then I'm going to hope that they all sit nice and flush as we go. Now the next step is optional depending on whether or not you remove the locking pawls. Now if you took your locking pawls apart, I'm going to show you how to get those put back together. There's a slotted area inside of them where you can insert your spring. So you insert the spring into the first one, and then you take your second one, and on the opposite side you line it up with the slotted area, and then you turn it so they're interlocked, and you can see how they can push together. This is the mechanism that holds the shackle and releases the shackle. What we're going to want to do is take our lock body and put the shackle in the closed position without pushing it in. And then we're going to want to lift these up into the body of the lock, being careful to keep them interlocked. Once they're inside, you're going to want to get the slanted area of the locking pawl lined up with the shackle. So you're going to need to maneuver them around a little bit here until they are lined up in that little grooved out area in the shackle so that they sit in the locked position. So it just takes a little bit of moving around. Okay. Alright, so now I have the bottom one and the top one in. Then once they are in, you can take your plug and then you can take your key, and then we're going to insert the plug in away from you. So you can see that the slanted areas are lined up with the shackle, and we're going to insert it away from us. Now there's a little area in the middle here that now you can see the lock is interfacing with that will pull those springs together, and now we have a working locking mechanism. These can be a little difficult to take apart, so you know, it's a great learning experience, but I wouldn't do it every time, and it isn't necessary for the gutting portion. But I'm going to show you now how to put the rest of the lock together. What we have now is the key pins reinstalled with the plug, and we'll do the driver pins in just a second. One thing to note is you do not have to put the key pins in the prior step. You can do everything through the top if you would like to. I like to split it up so I don't lose track of anything. Now I'm going to do is insert my retaining pin for my core. I'm going to put that into slot 7. In order for it to install, I got to turn the plug towards me so it can get in that little groove. And now the plug is secure. I'm going to insert the little spring, and now in each driver pin slot I'm going to reinstall each driver pin with the spring. And then we're just going to go down the stack. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And now I'm going to replace all the springs. What's really great once you get proficient at this is that you can start adding security pins. You can change out the key pins so that they aren't as long, so you'll have a lock where you have to pick everything. And this is a really great lock for you to be able to visualize exactly what's going on. So now that we have everything replaced, all that we need to do is put the top back on the lock here, and then the lock will be back to its original state. So I'm just going to pop this back on, close the lock up, and then we have the lock back into its original state. As you saw at the beginning of the video, I was able to pin this lock up with some security pins. I think this lock makes a really great visual aid for people that are trying to see exactly what's going on, especially when you're trying to learn spools, serrated pins, and you want to see how a spool pin's counter rotation looks, how it presents, what feedback you're seeing. In serrated pins, you want to see how you lift it to each little serration, and you can see how it can change the binding order based on how far it's lifted. These are great little tools and very cheap to pick up. I highly recommend you try repinning a clear acrylic padlock. It can really help you down the road. If you guys have any questions or suggestions, please leave them in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more like it, please subscribe. As always, thank you so much for checking this video out, and I hope you have a great day. Thank you.